and take a sword. And so maybe Peter was arming himself, and perhaps secretly that was what he wanted. But Jesus said, put the sword back in its place. You know, he who lives by the sword dies by the sword. You know, you could swap out that word sword for perhaps missile or gun or nuclear bomb or whatever it is. He who lives by the gun dies by the gun. He who lives with violence will die by violence. You know, it's the sort of same thing. Just to turn it around, you could say, he who dies by the word lives by the word. He who dies by the word lives by the word. And that's what Jesus did. So the question is which sword are we carrying? Peter was carrying a physical sword, and it was, you know, the way of the world to fight physical violence with physical violence. That's something that, you know, is something that we can see in the world, but we can probably understand that it was then, like then, you know, maybe Peter wanted to take over and, you know, then wanted to kick the Romans out. You know, this is the temptation, isn't it? And Jesus doesn't go down that path, rejects that path. He rejected it previously when 5,000 people wanted to make him king. He rejected it. He sent them off, dismissed them, and went to pray, and then walked across the water. You know, so he had already faced that temptation in the wilderness. You know, the devil tried to tempt him with, you know, power. You know, you can have all this if you bow down and worship me. And Jesus said, it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord your God and serve only him. So he had faced that temptation, and he used a different sword. He used the sword of the Spirit, put the sword away. And Jesus spoke the words of life. You know, he who lives by the sword will die by the sword. That has, you know, stayed with us all of these millennial, those wise words he said. You know, and also think about it. He can pray to his Father, which is God, and he will send 12 legions of angels. You know, that puts it in perspective. A legion is about 5,000 to 6,000 angels per legion. So that's 72,000